Hi Jordan, how
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. What about yourself?
Good, thank you. I'm excited to chat about your Lakehead experience, dive into your academics, your journey to Canada, all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
To start off, though, I'll introduce myself for those viewers that haven't had the chance to meet me in one of the many lives I've been a part of over the last few months. My name is Jordan. I am the International New and Social Media Officer here on campus. Um, I help oversee our social media as well as some of our live events. But I'll pass it over to you to introduce yourself, Alex.
Thank you for having me here, and nice to hello to everyone as meeting. My name is I am I am now it is but originally I am from Quito, Ecuador, and studying master in environmental engineering. This is my second year, almost at the end of my career, so I'm really happy.
Awesome. So I guess the first question I have for you is just chatting about obviously the current situation and being the fact that you've been social distancing. What have you been up to? What have you been keeping yourself busy with?
My life is around work. So they keep me busy because I am trying to finish one paper that hopefully I will publish the next month. So that's keeping me busy and I'm working on it. And also I am working for university at the ELC. So I am moving from one activity to other activity generally from Monday to Friday and the majority of the time. But also try to distract myself. So I have a puppy here, so I think you. I am training new tricks and things like that, and I am trying to stay. I'm doing kind of work some of the days, and that is how my life is now. The current
Yeah,
life.
I'm sure obviously wrapping up your master's here also while working and all while training a puppy to make sure that they're well behaved is a lot to take on and it's a lot to be involved in. But
Yes,
I know it's also probably keeping you busy and keeping your mind off of other things, so that's exciting to hear. Um, so I know we're gonna dive back into the puppy and potentially maybe get to see a photo or meet it in person. We'll have to see. Um, but one of the first questions I like to ask is looking back a few years ago when you're home in Ecuador and you were considering about which country to study abroad in. Um, how did you help narrow down to Canada as your study abroad destination?
mhm. So back at home when we young, I one professor, and he is working actually at the university, and he works on many research programs there. So I met, and then we started a good relationship with him. Now he's one of my best friends, and also a friend of my family. So once I finished my undergrad there in Ecuador, I was looking to to continue my studies abroad. In
Hmm.
this, he pushed me to choose Canada because he was telling me all the amazing stories that Canada has, also the environment that it has, the teachers, and then I start by a little bit of research by myself, and then I consider Lake as my favorite options, and I am happy to be here.
Awesome. And then chatting, obviously. So, you mentioned that you completed an undergrad back home. What was that undergrad that you completed back home in Ecuador?
Back home in Ecuador, I finished my undergrad in mechanical engineering. Uh,
Okay. And then you segued. I know we're going to chat about this in the academics, so I won't preface it too much, but then you segued into the environmental engineering field, but there is a unique connection in there, which we'll chat about. So I'll preface that so our audience stays with us and they want to learn more. Um, but then once you've narrowed it down to Canada and you know that Canada is one of your destinations, did you, and obviously your professor, family friend had recommended Lakehead. when you evaluated Lakehead, what were you evaluating and what helped you actually end up selecting Lakehead as your final choice?
Mhm. So the first thing that me to look in Lakehead was the environment that it is offering for the international students. The program that Lakeheads are running right now, how the experience of other international have had in Lakehead. So that was my first point of view. And then I found that it has already developed a full student experience. You have a lot of departments that are taking care of us. And and I guess that was the first and the main point why I chose Lakehead. And then I also, like I said, I know my professor, I know the job that he is doing. He is really passionate in what he's doing. And now my supervisor, so I can say that in that way, the professors and the staff at Lakehead is good enough that they are pushing you to be better all the
Mm-hmm.
time, and that's why I choose Lakehead.
Yeah, and that's definitely important to make sure that you can connect with your professors, or you feel like they also have the same passions towards the program that you do, because then you're more willing to learn and you're more excited to learn, and hopefully that will then make the connection between you excelling within the program to obviously being in your third or second year, pardon me, and close to wrapping up. I think it's clear that you've been successful thus far, and we're definitely excited to see the final product being your thesis of the whole course.
Mm-hmm.
Chatting a bit um, about the journey itself. So now, obviously, we work through the motions here. So we've discussed now your decision on Canada, your decision on Lakehead. Can you walk us through sort of the emotions and what you're most excited about and nervous about in the weeks leading up to leaving Ecuador and coming to Thunder Bay?
Yes. So when I was back at home, I was afraid because that was the first time that I will be traveling to North America. So I was really nervous about the English, how I will do my English there.
Mm-hmm.
But I was really nervous and curious about the culture. Like I say, I have met my friend in Ecuador and he's Canadian, but I didn't know how Canada looks like and how people is looking like. So I
Mm-hmm.
was about it. However, I can say that now I feel totally comfortable with my English, and the same with the Canadian culture. I have learned a lot of Canadian culture, learn about the food that you are eating, like the maple syrup, the pierogies, and all the Canadian. And now I have tried it. The the culture, like for example, when you say thank you, sorry, all the time, and that was new
Yeah.
for me. And but now I have learned doing that too. So in that way, I can say that we are having a lot of different, also many similarities, and have helped me to set up Thunder Bay. And like I said, like don't have any problem. I feel totally comfortable here in Canada, and I am really happy to be here and not complain about anything.
Awesome. And so to kind of reiterate, I know you mentioned that you were nervous about the language barrier, whether your English was going to be good enough, being that it was a second language for you. And then you mentioned that you slowly grew the confidence and now you've become totally comfortable with the language. Can you walk us through that transition and kind of how long that took you to become comfortable, or how long you were like continued to maybe feel like you were still nervous about your English?
Mm. Well, at the beginning, missing also my language. I speak. So at the beginning, I was missing to speak Spanish because there I couldn't find at the beginning someone who speaks Spanish. But that also helped because in that way I was English all the time, and
Yeah, for sure.
I was nervous like maybe the first month. I
Hmm.
some of I was like I should be really focused on what the people were saying to me to try to catch what they are saying. But after that month, it start to settle down again in English because I was with my classmates, with my teachers, with my co-workers, so everywhere. And then now I can say that I am happy. I am really happy to have English, and I feel totally comfort. I love English nowadays.
For sure, yeah. And then chatting about, I know this kind of jumps back to the beginning where you chatted about just generally being excited to explore North America and actually the journey itself to Canada and then being in Canada. I'm curious to know, was winter, was it going to be your first time experiencing winter and snow in that season?
I went to Canada on summer, and some 2 years ago. Sorry, I went,
Hmm.
and the weather was amazing there. So it was kind of this weather that we have back at home. But when I started experience fall, and then it was completely new for me. The
For
first time,
sure.
the first time watching snowing and doing the experience, doing the Canadian experience at winter, it was really amazing. So just let me show you a photo of. I'm gonna also show you a photo of my dog that we were. Okay,
Of course, yeah.
okay. So this was this winter. We were doing
Hmm.
snowshoeing with him. So we were in a lake, and
Yeah.
he was really happy with the snow. He loves the snow. Now he's struggling with summer, but when there is a lot of snow, he is really happy with that. So
He's in
this is
his element.
for
He's in his
him
prime.
yesterday, and yeah, and this was also hikings and things that I was doing at the beginning of the when I went to Canada. I was meeting all
Hmm.
the beautiful place that there are, surrounding Thunder Bay.
Awesome. And so obviously, speaking about winter, I mean, some people definitely, the entire season, all of the activities, all of the sports that you can be involved in, snowshoeing, downhill skiing, cross-country skiing, tubing, those are all brand new to many people. And they don't necessarily know that those exist or that it's an opportunity for them to do. What have you done so far? Obviously, we know that you've done snowshoeing, but have you done any of the tubing or skiing? Oh, I
Sorry,
think
sorry. The
I cut out there probably. I'll reiterate. So with winter, there's lots of new activities for students that they've never experienced before. So have you done some of the skiing and tubing and snowboarding?
Yeah, I did it. I some with the Lakehead University, because Lakehead is also running these kind of programs. But I went with and spend a nice time there. So it was a new experience for me. I was learning all the time. For me, the winter it was all the time how to dress, how to walk, and how to do a sport, how surviving. So I was learning, but now that everything was a good experience for me.
For sure. And then diving into academics. So obviously, sort of the main reason why you're here in Canada is to continue on within your educational journey. And I know we mentioned that we were going to talk about this. So for those viewers that have joined us recently, Alexander completed an undergrad in mechanical engineering in Ecuador. Could you go back to that time frame and just chat about why you chose mechanical engineering and how you ended up picking that program? And then we'll slowly walk through it, eventually how you got into environmental engineering.
Mhm. So when I used to be a child, I was amazing how the things work. I used to have a car toy, and I was amazing how does it work, how that works. I was how does the car works. So I was all the time I was having those questions on my mind, and then when I was growing up, I was interested in the aero, and I found that one door to go there could be mechanical engineering, because
Hmm.
we will learn the majority of topics that are gonna be useful in that career. So it was mechanical engineering due to, and then I found another passions. I found fluids, and I can say that when I was learning it, it was really amazing. Also, I met one teacher back at home that he used to have a lot of experience, and he pushed me on this field. And then when I decided to go to Canada, at the beginning I was doing mechanical engineer master degree, but immediately I switched to environmental engineering with my supervisor. And the reason why I switched is because there was this idea of green using fluids. So then I connect the fluids to the environmental impact of using their fluids in the mining industry. And now my research is related to it. So I am working in ways to separate minerals using just the water.
Awesome. And obviously, I think that speaks to the fact that many people have the traditional view that if you complete one undergrad, such as yourself, you completed mechanical, that you could only ever move into another mechanical graduate program or a post-secondary program that is in the exact same field. But as you mentioned, there is that cross collaboration, or that where the programs cross paths in a sense, and you got to experience and now research the fluids in there, and now you've tied it directly into a Northwestern Ontario environment. Um, so chatting a bit about the program, what do you like most about the program?
The one thing that I love about my program is the freedom. Like I am mechanical engineering, but nowadays I am environmental engineering. That it shows the freedom that I have to do whatever I and teachers are there to support you. So maybe someone is hearing that, oh, you're a mechanical engineer, but what are you doing environmental? It sounds like kind of crazy, but when you explain it and then they say, oh, but how did you do that? And they say, well, I was well, having meetings with my supervisor and he showed me the pathway to grow. And that is one all other important thing that had helped me. And that's why I can say that is the best thing that I like at
The flexibility within the program is definitely something that obviously has benefited you in the sense that you were able to make that smooth transition into environmental engineering just a few weeks after you had started. Chatting about the professors and some of the peers you've met in the program, what are your thoughts on your interactions with them so far?
oh, the interaction is good. Is good. They are always trying to help you all the time. And the good thing I can say is that we are having this direct contact between the professor and the student, and that helps you a lot when you have many questions. Those when you don't know how to do it, when you are feeling that, oh, this is so difficult. They are all the time there to support you. And like I say, they are more passionate than you, and that encourage them. So the the staff at Lakehead had helped me a lot in order to success.
Awesome. And obviously, being a Lakehead graduate myself, I can appreciate and relate to that in the fact that when your professors and when your peers in the classroom are also passionate about learning and also passionate about developing new research techniques or just expanding on your knowledge base, it encourages you to excel yourself and also learn more yourself, connect with even more people, and just continue that growth pattern, which is really important, obviously. So then, chatting about the research within your program, of course, your program is heavily focused on research and doing a thesis. Could you share with the audience sort of? I know you haven't decided on a title because that typically comes once you've completed all the findings, you've completed the report. The idea behind the research or the concept behind it.
So so the timeline of this. Beginning, like I say, I was looking for a topic to develop. Then I find the mining in Northern Ontario is a huge opportunity to success. And then I say, well, why cannot do something related to it? And then I met my supervisor, and then we start to work in this idea that now it is showing us good results, because in order to do that also I have the research fund of the government of Ontario, so that helped me a lot, and that is So telling me that I am doing, and that if with the hard working you will be able to do whatever you want to do there. So now then I just run some experiments in the lab at Lakehead.
Mm-hmm.
Like how it will work and try to predict the analyzing the data of it, and then I'm writing it. But basically what we are doing is use the I don't know if you know, but it's just a jet, a water jet, into a bed with different materials, and then we're pumping water through the jet,
Mm-hmm.
and water is separating the minerals in different. So in that way,
Okay.
okay, in this part we have more concentrated. In this part, we're having more concentrated silver. Able to pick it up, and then it's gonna be easier for separate these materials from the other materials. So basically, is that.
For sure. And obviously, speaking about that is the impact that your research will have on our local economy and our local community here in Thunder Bay. Mining is a significant industry and natural resource industry for us. And so some of the processes that were established that maybe used harsher chemicals, or the processes weren't very environmentally friendly, as it wasn't necessarily a major consideration back when these processes were established. But now that you're conducting this research with, of course, the guidance of your supervisor, I think it will definitely have some positive impact and hopefully positive change within the mining industry that then will benefit the climate in general, the environment in general. So that's very exciting to hear that. Do you have any photos from your research or any lab
Oh,
photos?
I have photos that maybe will worry you, so I prefer to share with you the photos that I have in my lab, like analyzing the data. I took the photo this like when I started. So this is
Yeah.
my lab. I was working analyzing the data, and then I
Hmm.
prefer not to bore you showing it the lab because it was kind of boring. I just have pictures of the experiments. But that's basically this. It was me working in the computer. Now my work is just in front of a computer analyzing data.
For sure, yeah. And I think that obviously showing a photo of all of the experiments in the lab or the lab instruments might be a little confusing for some people. I mean, for myself, being a business graduate, I probably couldn't wrap my head around some of those experiments or some of the instruments being used, but it's definitely exciting to see. Correct me if I'm wrong, is your research conducted or was it conducted in the New Cases building at the time?
No, it was in the Brown building.
Oh, okay. Interesting, because I know obviously with the cases building and building a massive building on campus that houses so many research centers and so many high-tech laboratories has also opened up many more spaces across the rest of campus where they originally came from. And so I know that having enough space to conduct your experiments and having a dedicated space of that is also very important. So chatting a bit about student life, so diving into another idea or concept of your Lakehead experience. I know that you mentioned that you work on campus and you work with us here at Lakehead University. Do you want to chat a bit about what that experience is, where you work, what you do, what that looks like, all that sort of stuff?
So when I to Canada, my goal was study and work. So at the beginning, I started to look for a job, and then I heard that he was looking for student assistants, and I applied for that job, and now I can say that I am also this is gonna I am really close to my second year at the ELC. So there I am a student assistant, but I work as the sponsor student coordinator, and basically I help her to planning the arrival and departure of different groups that we're having around work. Also, I helped to the international students who goes to Lakehead to start English first, and I help them to settle down, help them. to in accommodations, excursions, courses, and everything about settle down in Thunder Bay. So basically, do that. I work at the office too, doing office work. But one of the best things job is that I could meet people everywhere. I have met students who had go to Canada for a student to study just English, just for summer programs, just for a so it was a really that is the most important from my job, that I can meet a lot of people around the world. And the other thing is that I can help many students to settle place. And I'm trying to share my own experience to say, yes, I used to be like that, worried, you know, that, so everything is gonna be fine. Just breathe. In 2 weeks, it will be better, and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that Lakehead International does really well, in the fact that hiring international students for part-time work and to be some of our go-to assistants is really important in the overall aspect, because we know that you're able to connect with these students and appreciate exactly what they went through, and you can give them advice. So you went through the journey of coming all the way to Thunder Bay from Ecuador, being in Thunder Bay, and you can help them with that transition. And like you mentioned, one of your favorite aspects of your job is actually meeting the people from all around the world. So whether they're doing the short-term English programs, whether they're doing academic English in preparing to join an academic program at Lakehead, um, or simply doing English as kind of a skill, as a secondary language. There's so many different routes to complete that, and getting to interact with all those people from around the world is really an amazing aspect of your job. Another thing you mentioned, though, is that within your role, you help plan the trips for these people, their arrivals, their accommodations, their courses, their excursions, and not. I think you deserve all the credit, because not all the credit, but you deserve so much credit, because it's no small task planning these major programs and trips, and being there on the ground with them, in the sense that you're there assisting at every stage of their journey, really speaks to how we can cater to each of these groups and provide them with that exceptional experience.
Yes, our goal. And
Um,
that,
sorry, what were you going to say?
oh yeah, that is our share with them the real Canadian experience, and we are working hard to do that.
Awesome. So another thing I wanted to chat about, and I always give our guests the opportunity to kind of share their advice for future students. So what advice would you give to future students that will be joining us this fall, even potentially joining us in a week here for the summer programs, and then of course eventually winter too?
Mhm. I guess that the first one will be that you should not be worried about change your life from one place to other place, because that will not change yourself. You will be continue being the same. Don't be afraid about that. Don't also be afraid about to be lonely, because in a new life you will new people, and these new people maybe will be more amazing than the people that you have met before. So take it also like an adventure, and be focused in what you are doing, because that is important. Be focused in your future, and that do step by step to meet that goal, and don't be afraid to about the journey.
For sure. And I wanted to echo something you mentioned, in the sense that even though you're changing your location, you're changing your environment that surrounds you, that doesn't mean that as a person you have to change. You get to grow as an individual. You get to decide who you want to be and what you want to do. And you get to mold that through your journey at Lakehead. So this is a new experience for you. It's something that many students haven't done before, or at least in this exact environment, they haven't done it before. And so it's a new opportunity to have a fresh start, in a sense, but also it doesn't mean that you have to change. It just means that you've changed your location, as you said. And obviously, um, meeting people is another important part of the journey. And you said that don't be afraid that you'll be alone, because you can meet people. You can not necessarily replace old friends, but you can make new friends and you can continue building that group of people and your personal network. And there's several opportunities to do that, especially I know in ELC, it's always a great experience to be around some of the excursions you do and some of the events you host, because ELC has a very tight-knit group of people when you're in a classroom, but then also speaking to the international student services and all of the supports they provide and all of the events that they run to make sure that international students feel connected, feel represented, feel welcomed is a really big aspect to all of this as well.
Like
And so,
there are
sorry.
like there are many looking after for you, so that's something.
Awesome. So I guess that kind of brings us to the end of our session today. I know that we covered quite a bit. We chatted about your journey from Ecuador to Canada and Thunder Bay. We chatted about sort of the emotions of leaving home and the weeks leading up, what you were excited about, what you were nervous about, and being some of the things that you might be nervous about now that you've lived through that experience and it's been a couple of years. What was the outcome? And I know that in your case it was is a positive one, and you felt confident in the journey itself. And then we dove into academics, and I know we had quite a few requests from students that they wanted to hear from an environmental engineering student. And so I hope these students were able to join and hear about your experience, because I know it's very interesting to learn about the research that you're involved in, and hopefully the very significant and important impact it's going to make in our local community, but potentially on a global scale too.
Yes, and that's one thing that Lakehead is focusing in helping you to impact the community and also the world, and that is why also I choose Lakehead. Thank you, Jordan, for
Awesome.
having a great time.
Well, thank you.
I hope
Thank
see
you for joining me. It was my pleasure hosting you, and I definitely look forward to chatting with you in the future and seeing where you go, especially with wrapping up the thesis. And you're just a few months out here, so that's very exciting. To our audience members, thank you again for joining, and hopefully we'll see you at another live webinar soon for us. Alrighty, bye for now.
you. Bye.